Hi and welcome. On May 25th, 2018, the GDPR went into effect in the European Union. Although that affects mainly businesses that are doing business in the EU, it does have far-reaching implications. So we bring in Cords Owen, an expert on all this stuff, to learn a little bit more about how this affects your business and your marketing. First of all, Cords, I thought we had a deal on the shirt we were going to wear today. What happened to your tropical pineapple shirt?
I ran out of starch.
Well,
I like it to be stiff.
if you guys can get past the that he's not dressed appropriately, we can answer some questions. First of all, what is GDPR?
So the General Data Protection Regulation is a brand new rule in the European Union that's designed to protect citizens' personal information.
All right, and how does that have, or who does that affect here in America outside of the EU?
Okay, so first of all, most businesses in America are not going to be affected by the GDPR. The ones that are going to be affected are companies that own things like social networks, software as a service, also known as SaaS. So if you are a publisher of content that derives money from selling information about your users, the people that read your website, you're affected. If you are someone who is, let's say, a plastic surgeon or a car dealership, you're probably not really affected by this rule.
Because I saw on the newspaper that places like the LA Times now have just cut off users, like anybody that's in Europe, you can't even go to their sites.
That's right. So if you are today, if you are trying to browse the LA Times, Chicago Times, Baltimore Sun, and a few other publishers out there, if you try to go to their site, it'll actually say, sorry, because of the GDPR, you don't have access to our site. And it makes you kind of wonder, like, what information were they selling about users on those websites?
Do you know the answer to that?
Well, they were probably aggregating the types of articles that those particular individuals were reading and bucketing them into audience segments.
All right, so what's this mean then? If I'm somebody that's in the publishing, the marketing, all the stuff you were just talking about, and I'm still trying to reach people, how do I have to change my business model or my marketing plan?
So are you one of those businesses that is affected by this?
I don't know.
Okay, so if you are, so let's just say, for example, look at your Google Analytics. Are you getting a ton of traffic from Europe, per se? And are you doing business with those people that are coming in from Europe? Are you selling them anything? Are you providing services? Are you providing like hosting to them or whatever? If you are, then you're probably affected by this. And what you need to do is you need to make sure that you gain explicit permission to collect information about them. And not only do you gain their opt-in, but you need to publish and tell them, give them ease of access to that information with what you're doing with that information. So are you using that information to bill them? You just have to be transparent about it.
And part of this thing is this right to be forgotten. What is that?
So that's where data is meant to expire. So just because you signed up for a dating profile 5 years ago doesn't mean that site gets to keep your information forever.
Okay. So how do companies here in America deal with it, and should they be preparing for something like this to happen in America within the next year?
Well, so first of all, the way that companies are dealing with it is the European Union, the regulating agency actually is providing a toolkit for companies to make sure to publish that they're collecting information about you through cookies or the behavior that you're doing on their site. And you can go to their website, and we can post a link to that at the bottom of this video, and you can download it. It's a combination of JavaScript. So you may have noticed some of the websites you've gone to over the last several weeks and today may have, as soon as you go there, a little banner at the top that says, hey, this website uses cookies. If you close this banner, you're opting into using our website, and understand that we're collecting information about your behavior on this site.
All right, anything else we need to know?
All right, so I think what's important is just to run through a few things. So the whole idea of this is to protect these citizens' personal information, right? And so when we say personal information, what we mean is their name, their address, their photos, and sometimes it even means their IP address. So what IP address, what is the IP address of their router at their house or whatnot, and especially if they're using that information to connect you to an account where all the rest of your information might be stored, like your biometric data or your DNA data, whatever it could be. So you want to make sure that you ask people to opt in, explicitly opt in to your ability to collect data about them. And if not, you may not be able to grant them access to your site because the fine is pretty huge. It's up to 5% of your revenues,
Oh, wow.
which could be enormous. Already today, Facebook and Google, people have already taken them to court in the European Union, and their fines could range as much as $7 billion because they're saying they're not complying to this. It's a pretty big deal. You want to make sure that you give people easier access to their data. So, like for example, if you're collecting information about people on your website, if you don't have the ability to allow them to log in and delete their data or whatnot, you may want to try using a third-party tool. Like say, for example, you're collecting information about them. Well, instead of storing it in your website database, why not store it in your Constant Contact account? It's a very cheap way to store the data. And you can, Constant Contact, when you send out your newsletters, already has a place where people can go in and opt out, or they can delete the data that you store about them. So that's a really cheap way of dealing with this. And then, take a look at your policy. You want to make sure your privacy policy conforms to the GDPR rules that are publicly available. You can go and check them out. And then...
There's that.
Yes, there's that. Exactly. There's that.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I feel a little bit smarter. And if you have any more questions concerning this, feel free to give us a call here at Bakemore Pies in Tampa, Florida. Cords Owen is the expert on this. And I'm just the guy that has great fashion sense. I'm Chris Fisher. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.